Welcome, everybody, to Frequencies, Cancer, and Degenerative Diseases. This is Dr. Smith live with the 71st episode. Got some great information to share with you tonight. But before we go, we have a few housekeeping items. One, if you go to ghsdoc.live, I have a link to an incredible interview of Judy Mikovits and Alex Jones. Judy Mikovits is a internationally known virologist. She's written like 4 books, and she really doesn't hold back. She tells you the truth of what the heck's in all these vaccines. Some of this garbage in there that's been there for 20 years. This stuff will curl your hair, people. I mean, I listened to it twice. It's so powerful. This whole monkeypox business, it's been in the vaccine, she said, I think for 20 years. The simian 40 virus in the polio vaccine was in there since the 60s and causing stomach cancer 30 to 40 years out. She goes into a lot more detail, some of the politics, the criminality that Fauci created, stealing her research. And once you listen to it, there's no way that any sane, logical individual would want to take the jab. It's totally experimental. It makes Mengele from Auschwitz look like a pussycat when you think about the potential damage of these things. The other housekeeping item I want to share with you is that frequencyshop.co. That's our new modified site where people can get access to affordable frequencies for healing many different type of problems. And the key to it's like 99% done. Jared just has to finalize the instructional video, how to navigate through for those people that are not computer savvy and, have difficulty, working through these type of things. So he said it's going to be a walk in the park. You can look at the instructional video before you even, sign up for it, so you can see how easy it is. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to bring a whole lot of healing to a lot of people all over the world. Frequencies are very, very powerful. So anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about frequency as a new hallmark to early cancer detection, why Royal Raymond Rife's 1930 cancer frequency cures have been ignored and suppressed. Scientists confirm the root canal cancer connection, adverse effects of low frequency on the human body, and reversing degenerative diseases. As Nikola Tesla once said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Truer words were never spoken. So as far as hallmarks and cancer detection, the establishment's finally starting to wake up to the power of frequencies. And it's kind of like a fingerprint. So the article was in Biomed Pharmacotherapy, 2020, February. Basically, they were saying that early detection is the most important strategy for controlling and management of cancer, which can significantly increase the survival rate by detecting disease in the early stages and rapid treating and preventing the progression of the disease. Well, you have to realize that cancer is not a disease, people. It's a reaction of the body to hypoxia, low oxygen, and toxicity. So they keep pushing this false narrative, this disinformation that cancer is a disease, when back in the 20s, they knew darn well it was not a disease, but an adaptation. There are a number of methods to differentiate the normal and cancerous cells, including pH changes. Otto Warburg, back in 1931, won a Nobel Prize in physiology. When the pH goes below 6.5, you get fermentation in an anaerobic environment, which sets up for proliferation of cells, which is cancer. Also, temperature changes. When you have cancer in an area, you get inflammation. and it shows up hot on the thermogram. Variations in electrical properties. The more acidic you become, and when you get down to like 5.4 oral pH, which is very acidic, your cell membrane potential goes to plus 55 volts, and it triggers off cancer and proliferation. I mean, all this stuff is out there in the literature, just that people haven't connected the dots, and certainly the physicians have no clue about this technology. So also preliminary evidence on specific frequency of some cancer cells. Well, Royal Raymond Rife documented back in the 30s that every type of cell resonates at a specific frequency. It's a fingerprint. So the key in the equation is once you document these things, it's easily discernible, but the establishment doesn't want to give credibility to Royal Raymond Rife's research from back in the 30s. And you'll see why a little bit later on here. So the results obtained in cancer treatment using the amplitude modulated electromagnetic fields indicate that each type of cell has a specific response to emitted frequency. Well, this stuff was known back in the 30s. All of a sudden, it's new technology. They're just stumbling on it now. Also, the results reveal that recorded frequencies of prostate and breast cancers are lower compared to normal cells associated with these tissues. Well, it stands to reason that the frequencies are going to decrease when the vitality of the cell is altered and becomes toxic. So there are more evidences for the existence of specific cell frequencies in the form of the response of each cell to its own specific frequency and the difference between normal and tumor cell frequency levels. Well, if you really want to get the inside information, you go to the Franklin Institute's 1944 February journal. They had an in-depth article, very comprehensive, about the Rife microscope, the universal microscope that he developed. He designed these, he machined the parts. There were, I think, 5,200 different parts in the microscope. And, he was staining viruses, whether it be cancer or regular flu viruses or bacteria, with light instead of using a chemical stain, which killed the living cells or viruses. And you see too many artifacts. So this guy was way ahead of the curve with his research. So based on these evidences, it can be introduced as a hallmark with the ability to distinguish between normal and tumor cells for cancer detection. The joke of it is you can use pathology slides of known different cancers to literally test the resonance of the presence of a specific cancer by holding a pathological slide of a specific cancer over an area and muscle testing it. Now, interestingly, reading the article, it's again sanitized, the traditional articles that are putting out in the conventional medical journals. It's not only sanitized, but they're giving a false narratives, because anywhere in these articles was there any mention about the initiators of cancer. They're not talking about mercury or formaldehyde or vaccines trapped in there. Nothing. No mention. Nowhere were there any mention of the potential impact of root canal infected teeth causing cancer. This information was known back in the 50s by Joseph Eisels. So, they're giving you bare bone information that needs a whole lot of tweakings, so to speak. But the answers are all out there. The research has been around since the 20s and 30s. And nowhere was there any mention of the 1930s research of Royal Raymond Rife. He documented that frequencies can cure cancer. Unequivocally, it was all suppressed. They don't want their revenue stream disrupted. So nowhere was there any mention of the 1931 Nobel Prize in Physiology awarded to Otto Warburg for discovering the true cause of cancer, hypoxia or low oxygen. Okay. Nowhere was there any mention about dietary contributions. adulterated oils, the processed foods, the chemical preservatives that are in there, food additives, on and on and on. So, they don't know the physiology and the origins of cancer. All they want to do is kill the cancer, slice it, dice it, and burn it. It's like painting on rust. It may look good for a short while, but after a while, the rust is going to pop through and then you get metastasis. So in my opinion, the medical research represents smoke and mirrors and a campaign of public disinformation, because they don't want you to know the truth about it, because if you did know the truth, you wouldn't accept their invasive treatment modalities. I mean, chemotherapy has been documented to be 97% failure rate. I mean, would you go to anyone who's in business that had a 97% failure rate? Well, that's what medicine's offering. New cancer biomarkers, another article that I came across in National Cancer Institute, early detection research. Cancer is not a single disease, but an accumulation of several events, genetic and epigenetic. Well, epigenetic is just the influence of environmental factors on the cell receptors, and it causes the cell to react in a specific way. Again, arising in a single cell over a long period of time. So things don't happen, instantaneously. It takes 36 months for the cancer to show up clinically as a tumor. Okay, so a high priority in the cancer field is to identify these events. This can be achieved by characterizing the cancer-associated genes. See, they all want to get into this scientific mumbo-jumbo. We figured out the genes that cause cancer, and then they're protein products, and we can make these scientific tests or biomarkers that we can pick up. Anyway, identifying the molecular alterations that distinguish any particular cancer cell from a normal cell will ultimately help to define the nature and predict the pathologic behavior of that of cancer cells. Well, unfortunately, even if they diagnose the cancer, their treatments are Neanderthal, because they're not getting at the cause of cancer. They're just cutting it out, irradiating it, or chemicalizing it. So understanding the profile of molecular changes in any particular cancer will be extremely useful, as it will become possible to correlate the resulting phenotype of that cancer with molecular events. Achieving these goals and knowledge will provide an opportunity for discovering new biomarkers for early cancer detection and developing prevention approaches. Their concept of prevention is unbelievable. In my own case, for example, about 52 years ago, I went to an endocrinologist because when I was a young baby, they used radiation to shrink my thymus gland, and they knocked off part of my thyroid. So the endocrinologist, his idea of prevention was to put me on Synthroid to shut my thyroid down to prevent me from getting cancer. I mean, this is medical technology for Neanderthals. Anyway, I told the doctor, I asked him, is what's left of my thyroid working? He said, yes. I said, well, then you take the drug. Anyway, as you can readily observe, the same mechanistic approach is being employed. The so-called scientists have no understanding of hypoxia, low voltage, or low pH, and the physiologic impact they have on normal cells. Why isn't any researcher focusing on Rife's technology, which has already proved its effectiveness against cancer? It's a joke. The documentation's been there since the 30s. Now, why Royal Raymond Rife's 1930 cancer frequency cures have been ignored and suppressed? The answer is simple. Frequency treatment for cancer will dramatically reduce Big Pharma's revenue stream, putting a dent into their $450 billion plus cancer industry. They don't like that. So Royal Raymond Rife successfully isolated the filterable cancer virus in 1932. and repeated his procedure 104 consecutive times with identical results. Rife proved that the BX cancer virus had 4 distinct forms and that any one of these forms can change into the BX carcinoma within 36 hours when the medium on which it was growing was altered. In 1860s, Anton Béchamp proved this. It's the terrain. When the terrain gets toxic, the healthy cells transmutate into pathogenic forms and cancer. It's a no-brainer, people, once you understand it. Just think about your lawns. If you have toxic soil, you have a breeding ground for weeds. It don't make any sense. I mean, it took me 5 seasons to get my lawn in what I call pristine shape, using Jonathan Green's organic and non-toxic approach to a good lawn. And my soil is nice and more on the alkaline side. I have no weeds, and it looks like a golf course. And it's safe for the animals, and it's safe for my cats if they walk on it or if I walk on it. I'm not bringing glyphosate into the house or any other toxic chemicals. So the key is that Rife also was able to replicate this conversion 300 times with identical results. In other words, converting the normal healthy bacteria, the Bacillus coli, into the BX carcinoma virus and reversing the transmutation from the BX carcinoma back to the Bacillus coli 300 times. So you think that there's consistency here? Rife said, in reality, it's not the bacteria themselves that produce the disease, but the altered terrain that causes the microorganisms to become pathological or virulent to produce a disease. He also believed it's the terrain of the human body. He says, if the terrain of the human body is perfectly balanced or poised, it is susceptible to no disease. You don't catch colds when your body is healthy, when you're in the alkaline range, when you have adequate protein, B vitamins, vitamin D, so forth, vitamin C. You don't get sick. You only get sick when your own terrain is corrupted. So Rife invented a special microscope, which I mentioned earlier, the universal light microscope, that you can get the incredible journal article, February 1944, from the Franklin Institute. If you have an interest, it's the most requested article from that organization. So he invented this light microscope with a prism with a unique light source that enabled him to discover the mortal oscillatory frequency that would kill bacteria, viruses, mold, fungi, yeast, and cancer cells non-invasively. So you can kill the cancer cell or bacteria or virus without damaging any of the surrounding tissue. What a novel idea. When you take pharmaceutical drugs, you have what Arnold Schwarzenegger would call collateral damage. So his research uncovered the fact that every organism vibrates at a signature frequency. He also theorized and proved that subjecting the cancer virus or any other microorganism to its mortal oscillatory frequency at which it vibrated would literally explode the disease-causing organism without damaging the surrounding tissues. What a great idea. Rife successfully utilized his technology on isolated viruses and then successfully treated over 400 animals with tumors, reversing their cancer. In 1934, a special medical study was conducted at the University of Southern California. The research team was headed by Dr. Arthur Kendall, who was then dean of the Northwestern Medical School in Chicago, Dr. Edward C. Rosenau, the head bacteriologist from the Mayo Clinic, and Dr. Milback Johnson, who was then president of the Southern California Medical Association, and 5 other prestigious researchers. These highly qualified scientists were given 16 terminally ill cancer patients to be treated with Rife's frequency generator. After treatment for 130 days, all 16 cancer patients were cured. That 4-letter dirty word, cure. In 1 year, 11 research centers in the United States that were validating Rife's technology mysteriously burned down. What a coincidence. you have a greater chance of getting hit by lightning. Following this successful study, it all hit the fan. Dr. Kendall disappeared off the face of the earth, and he retreated to a 300-acre farm in Mexico where he was later discovered. Dr. E.C. Rosenau stopped using Rife's equipment at the Mayo Clinic and stopped talking about the technology when he lectured. Unfortunately, Dr. Milbank Johnson mysteriously died the night before he was to give a press conference on the successful cure of the 16 terminal cancer patients. 6 months after they exhumed his body, guess what? They found cyanide in his toothpaste. Wow, what a coincidence. So there's 3 takeaway messages from this information. Number one must correct the terrain in order to cure cancer or any other disease. Excuse me. Number 2, killing the cancer is only one aspect of the healing equation, when in fact, when you change the terrain, get rid of the toxins, the cancer cells literally go back to healthy cells. And the third major takeaway is do not mess with Big Pharma and American Mafia Association, because they don't like their revenue stream disrupted, and they will even dispose of you if you're a big enough threat to their industry. Root canals are a common cause of cancer. In the 1950s, Dr. Joseph Eisels, a noted German medical expert in cancer treatment, concluded after treating thousands of cancer patients with that conventional and natural approaches to curing cancer will both fail if the patient has root canal teeth and infected tonsils. So this observation was established in the 1950s. So the bottom line is it was all ignored because they don't want to cure you. They want to lead you down the primrose path to a slow death and pickpocket you on the way to the grave. These 2 issues place a major burden on the immune system by creating a high level of toxicity. So anything in the mouth, toxic root canals with thioethers, bacteria, viruses that migrate to these areas of chronic inflammation, infected tonsils, all drain through the lymphatic system down to your thyroid, your thymus, your heart, the breast, prostate, other organs. Bill Henderson authored the book Cure Your Cancer. After 25 years as a cancer prevention advocate, speaking with thousands of cancer patients and doctors on and off the air, he stated, 2 facts have jumped out at me from these many phone calls. The most common cause of all cancers is root canal teeth and cavitations, which are infections, residual infections in the bone after infected teeth are removed. Until a cancer patient gets rid of the root canal filled teeth and decavitations or infections in the jawbone, they don't get well. You can take those 2 facts to the bank. Dr. Robert Jones looked directly at the relationship between root canals and breast cancer. His 5-year study involved over 300 women with breast cancer, and he found that 93% of the women who had root canals, and interestingly, these root canals were on the same side of the breast cancer. So what a great observation. And if you had other pathology in the mouth, invariably it was on the same side as the breast cancer. So the actual root canal procedure can be the cause of infection from the get-go. In 1998, a 1998 study published in the American Academy of Periodontology concluded that the actual root canal sites and the blood samples of all 26 case subjects contained anaerobic bacteria, meaning bacteria that grow in low to no oxygen environments. So it's a safe bet that from the minute you get the root canal, no doubt recommended and performed by your traditional local dentist, a never-ending river of bacteria starts flowing into your entire bloodstream, people. I refer you to the first episode of my docu-series called Cancer Deconstructed. You can access it on icnr.com under Cancer Docu-Series. And one cancer case that I presented, actually a live interview in the episode, involved a patient who had metastatic lung cancer. After the surgical removal of the cancer in her right lung, the patient developed cancer in her left lung 6 months later. Interestingly, she had a lower left first molar tooth that had a root canal. She complained to her dentist that the tooth never felt right, but he found no pathology on the x-ray. Energetic testing diagnosed cytomegalovirus in the tooth. The cytomegalovirus was also in the biopsy slide of the cancerous tissue from the right lung. So the patient also had mercury and pesticide in the cancerous tissue. 6 months after the root canal tooth was removed and a custom nutritional program established to remove the mercury and pesticide, the cancer in the left lung disappeared and documented by blood test and CAT scan by the hospital, not by me. So again, there's 3 episodes that are up both on icnr.com and also ghsdoc.live. So you can see it at either of those 2 sites. Okay. Now, the adverse effects of low frequency on the human body. Not only are low frequency sounds associated with human illness, but they also are associated with annoyance, lack of ability to focus or concentrate, and the inability to retain information, memory problems. It is believed by some people that some individuals operate at a higher frequency, kind of like yogis. They operate at 100 hertz, while others operate at a lower frequency based on unmitigated stress levels or unresolved feelings that the individual inevitably exudes in social interactions with others. You hang around with negative people, you're going to get negative. This means that one stressed out person can pass that low frequency and negative attitude onto anyone else they encounter. You either fly with eagles or you hang around with turkeys. Coincidentally, many animals communicate displeasure or anxiety with low frequency communication sounds, such as groans, hissing, growls, or snarls. Low frequency sounds are not only shown to be psychologically distressing to the humans, they can create physical fatigue and uncomfortable pressure on the eardrum as well. I know when my female cat is upset with her brother, the male cat, she hisses him. It's a really funny sight, but the low-level sounds, and he gets spooked. Ambient low-frequency sounds are associated with increased mistakes in the workplace, as well as general sense of discomfort in humans. This is because low sound frequencies conflict with the natural frequencies produced by the human body, which is like 62 to 78 hertz. That's the normal frequency range of the body. The earth vibrates at 7.86 hertz, the Schumann frequency, to 8 hertz. So here's just a list of some of the negative symptoms associated with the low frequency sound exposure: loss of sleep, irritability, fatigue, loss of concentration, and nausea, cardiovascular disease, and hearing reduction. So sources for low-level noise: environmental noise and wind turbines. And they want to put more of these things all around this country for the Green New Deal. Road vehicles, aircraft, industrial machinery, artillery and mining explosions, air movement machinery, including wind turbines, compressors, and ventilation or air conditioning units. Sources for low-level noise. So reversing degenerative diseases. A disease in which the function or structure of the affected tissues or organs changes for the worse over time. Some examples are osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, Alzheimer's disease, or just some of the basic examples. The sequence in degenerative disease follows: number 1, the occurrence of inflammation. So inflammation is the body's response to what I call a splinter or initiator. It could be heavy metals, lead, arsenic, cadmium, aluminum, nickel, or mercury. They're the 6 most frequent ones that I find in patients. Chemicals, could be formaldehyde, could be dioxin, it could be glyphosate. Vaccines and their adjuvants, pathogens and any other chemical food additives, they all cause irritation. With the irritation, you get inflammation, and that's the body's natural response. When you have chronic inflammation, you get fibrosis and scarring, and that hampers the circulation both through the organs in the lymph and blood vessels. When you have chronic fibrosis and scarring, you get organal dysfunction, and the tissues become disrupted, and you get pathology. You get pathology, disease, breakdown of the cells, ultimately death. So that's the basic sequence: irritation, inflammation, fibrosis, scarring, dysfunction of the organs and tissue, breakdown of the cells, and you get final death. Interestingly, when your body's frequency level gets down to 25, I think millivolts, you're dead. Anyway, the key to reversing the process is to define the source of irritation and remove it. Then address the other reactions to restore normal function. So let's give you some examples. If you have inflammation, you can use natural anti-inflammatories such as quercetin, curcumin, glutathione, ginger, vitamin C like amla C from Indian gooseberry, bromelain, and papaya. Also, omega-6 and omega-3 organic oils help to rebuild the cells. Omega-6 organic cold-pressed oils are anti-inflammatory. With fibrosis and scarring, the best way to attack that issue is the use of zymesins, which is the best systemic enzyme to dissolve away scar tissue on this planet at this particular time. When you have dysfunction, you want to feed the body Sunoco racing fuel, Pure Synergy. It's an organic and well-crafted nutrient derived from 60 different grasses, herbs, and spices. It helps the organs and the tissue repair. Also, you need adaptogens. Adaptogens are very, very important to allow the body to recuperate. So such things as cordyceps, and I use Stanley Nye's cordyceps, which in my opinion, and also Stanley's in our clinical observation, it's the best on the planet. It's CS4 cordyceps. It don't get any better. Ashwagandha, another great adaptogen. Rhodiola, astragalus, bacopa, which is also good for long-term memory. Ginseng is good stimulant. Schisandra, reishi, maca, which is really Peruvian ginseng. Holy basil, eleuthero, dang shen, bilberry, amla C, which is Indian gooseberry. Also, the use of ozone is very good for dysfunction because it burns up a lot of toxins and it's anti-inflammatory. So the ultimate takeaway is that you must change your lifestyle to remove the damaging components. If you think you're going to get chemo or radiation or cut out the cancer and you're cured, you're delusional. So anyway, that's my little presentation for today. So Jared, if you have any questions, just pop them up on the screen. Are you familiar with the oscilloscope myopulse? Yes, it's microcurrents, I believe, and frequencies, can cure. There's no two ways about it. You just got to get the right frequencies. That's the key in the puzzle. It's a very good instrument modality. So if you have access to it, go for it. What's your go-to ways to get rid of heavy metals with your patients? Okay, number one, Stephen, you just don't want to start dumping heavy metals or any toxins in the body without preparing the liver. So number one, on my advanced detox course online, which is in-depth, gives you all the great information. The key is you have to give the liver what it needs to break down the toxins that it pulls out of your blood. So give you an example, it needs natural B vitamins, not synthetic garbage that smells like a drug. It needs glutathione. It needs curcumin. It needs milk thistle, which is great for rebuilding the liver. So again, if you just start dumping heavy metals, they're going to get redistributed to other parts of the body. So once you clean out the liver, okay, you want to open up the avenues of excretion. So there's one of 9 different drainage remedies that I use, and invariably it's only one that matches the patient. So once you clean the filter, then open up the avenues of excretion, now you address the heavy metals. So glutathione is very effective. IMD is a powder that's very effective in chelating the heavy metals. Metal cord from Energetics is also another great product. Cilantro is a natural herb that's good in chelating metals. Zeolite is also another substance that's good for heavy metals. So there's a number of great products out there. It's basically you have to test to see which of these substances are compatible with the patient. So very good. Great question. What's the best heavy metal testing? Urine, blood, or hair strand? You have to really give a challenge to test the heavy metals, because if they're locked up in the tissue, they may not show up in the urine or blood or hair strands. So there was, excuse me, not DMSO, DMPS from Germany was a good challenge to pull out the heavy metals. Because like I said, you could do all these fancy tests and it's going to show up, oh, you have low levels of heavy metals. But here's the key. The body will not let go of the heavy metals if you have trace mineral deficiencies. So you have to supply the nano minerals, the zinc and chromium and all the other micronutrients, so that the body will let go of the heavy metals. So again, you just don't start throwing chelating agents in the body and think that you're solving the problem. You can actually exacerbate the problem. You got to do it logically and in sequence. Like I said, it took me about 35 years to piece together the detox sequence that I use, and we have a very high success record. You could also muscle test, which would be, in my opinion, even more accurate than blood or urine or hair. And you can come up with a monitor that's a number without a unit. So there's no milligrams or pounds or ounces or anything like that. It's just a number. So you can muscle test with a vial of mercury, for example, let's say over the liver, and you get a number of, let's say, 8,000. So you give the individual supplements. They come back in 2, 3, or 6 weeks later. You retest the area. And now instead of testing at 8,000 energetically, it may be 6,000 or 4,000. So you know when it's coming down that the body is expelling the heavy metals from that organ. So it's non-invasive, it's not expensive, and it's instantaneous. So, unless you've dug lateral holes, you're not going to find this information out. There's, like I said, most people are like blind people feeling an elephant. They all have a different perspective on what the heck they're feeling. But you really have to spend the time and years of studying the different specialties to find this information: naturopathic medicine, chiropractic, osteopathic, nutritional stuff, physical therapy, cranial. You just can't keep digging a hole deeper in one specialty. You're not going to find the answers. So great question, American Girl. Have you heard of the Quest 4 bioresonance device for practitioners? I have not, Stephanie. Sorry to tell you that, but I have no knowledge of it or experience with it, so I really can't comment on it. But I will look it up. 4 bioresonance device. Okay. How do you clear chronic giardia and cysts? Again, Paul, you have to prepare the body, the liver, and detox. Giardia comes from the public water supply. Uh, so again, you have to start foundationally. You got to clean out the liver, the intestines, the lymphatics, reimplant the healthy microbiome back in the intestines. And then there's frequencies, right frequencies, that will explode the giardia and the cysts. There's also homeopathics. So you also have to do it for at least 6 weeks because of the cycle of the juveniles, developing in the parasites. So like anything else, you want to clean out your intestines, food grade diatomaceous earth for 90 days. It slices and dices parasites, cysts, absorbs the poisons in the intestines, and it scrubs the walls, getting the mucus plaque off it. So again, 90 days with that. But there are homeopathic remedies for that. There's frequencies for that on the Rife technology. So that's the way I would approach it. See, I was recently treated for Lyme. What's the best way to detox my liver from the dreaded Lyme? Well, glutathione, C3 curcumin by Designs for Health, the natural B vitamins. I'd like standard process, Cataplex B and G. Okay. And again, you have to test to see how long it's going to take to clean out your liver. And then you test one of 9 different drainage remedies. And again, test what's the length of time for that. And also you want to test the thyroid. Again, this is a common denominator in all chronic illnesses. The blood tests are not accurate to assess the thyroid, unfortunately. Energetically, we pick it up all the time. If you take your clinical symptoms, thinning of the hair, insomnia, constipation, acne, digestion problems, dizziness, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, dry skin, these are just some of the symptoms. You couple your symptoms with armpit temperature. And if it's below 97.8, the likelihood is you have an underfunctioning thyroid. And you couple those 2 factors with your pulse. The pulse should be 84, 85, not 72. So you have those 3 factors: symptoms, temperature, and pulse. And if you don't focus on restoring the health of the thyroid, you can kill the Lyme, and I'll guarantee you within 3-4 months, it's going to come back, because it's the primary component of the immune system that controls the pathogens. We have anywhere from 1 to 3 trillion pathogens in our body all the time. And the only reason why we don't get sick and die is because we got a healthy immune system, good intestines. 60 to 80% of your immune system is a healthy intestine, your thymus, your thyroid. And so, again, you have to prepare the body. You just don't go in like a bull in a china closet and start killing Lyme or bacteria or viruses. You really have to prepare the body. Unfortunately, it takes a little bit longer to approach it that way, but you're going to have a much more stable result. So, and there's frequencies for Lyme and Babesia and Bartonella. There's Lyme Plus, which is a product that we use from Des Bio that's very effective. And then there's also could be cofactors, like I said, Babesia and Bartonella, Rickettsia, West Nile virus. I mean, there's so many other variables that you have to assess. So they're trapped antibiotics or drugs that you've taken from childhood. I mean, I recently was treating a fellow who has a low oxygen level, really severe low oxygen, and he had a heart problem. And I diagnosed that he had 2 antibiotics, Levaquin and Cipro, that were trapped in his heart from years ago from taking prescriptions for that for upper respiratory problems. So these are the things that your traditional medical doctors or don't even know that they don't know. And so again, you have to get away from this allopathic mentality of blinders. Oh, we got to go after the Lyme, kill the Lyme, and that's going to solve our problem. No. you're dealing with a global issue here of the body. And if the terrain is toxic, it's going to come back. Have you seen the bioscalar device by Dr. Sandra Michaels, e-system? I have not seen the bioscalar, but I am going to make a note of that and look it up. You said bioscalar. I will definitely look it up, Jennifer. As CyberScan for heavy metal testing or muscle testing, both good, or one better than the other. If you're a good muscle tester, you can get phenomenal results. Now, here's some of the drawbacks. Number one, if your test subject has low functioning thyroid, the muscles are going to fatigue in a short period of time and you're not going to get an accurate test. Also, if the person being tested is deficient in essential fatty acids, the omega-6, omega-3 oils, guess what? The muscles are going to fatigue very quickly. In those cases, we use surrogate testing. Now, the CyberScan is good because it has a database of 135,000 electromagnetic signatures, which means that it's going to pick up not only heavy metals, it's going to pick up, whatever you're testing for, toxins, chemicals, food additives, and it's also going to show you that it could be in the different levels of the body. By that, I mean, when you get a response from the CyberScan and it has a number 1, 2, or 3 next to it, that means that finding is literally in the physical realm. It's real. It's in the physical realm. It's like me holding up this pen. This is physical. You see it. It exists. When you get into the levels of 4, 5, and 6, it's emotional. Okay. When you get 7, 8, and 9, it's in the mental level realm. It's getting further and further away from the physical body. And 10, 11, and 12, the etherical, which means it's in your aura. So just because you have a frequency of, let's say, cadmium in your level 11, doesn't mean it can't affect you. Any frequency in your aura is going to affect your body. So the key is we're also looking for clusters. Are there a lot of heavy metals present? Not just one isolated presence of it. So I use both the CyberScan and the muscle testing and combine my results to get more accuracy. So, answer your question, both actually gives you a better insight because your muscle testing is not going to, have a database of 135,000 signatures to test. So, after a while you get street smart. How can we know if a biological dentist is good? Good question. Take them to lunch. There's websites. Yeah, they say they do ozone, they do biometrics. There's a lot of bullshit out there, unfortunately. The key in the equation is let them give you references. Let me talk to the patients that you've treated. That's fair enough. I mean, if you get a carpenter to come in and build cabinets in your house, do you just pick them out of a hat and say, okay, come on in and do that? No, I want to see your work. So don't be bashful. If the dentist gets ruffled, fire him. He's got an ego problem or he has something to hide. Let him talk. You want to talk to their patients firsthand. See what he's like. Also, if you go to a local health food store, mom and pop type operation, they may have information, feedback from their clients that maybe people have gone to them, or maybe if you go to a chiropractor in the area, he may have feedback on a biological dentist. And the thing is, you have to develop a list of questions to intelligently have an interview with the dentist and say, what's your philosophy on root canals? What's your philosophy on nutritional support removing mercury fillings? Do you do galvanic testing to see which are the most active mercury fillings in the mouth that have to be taken out first? You're going to have to educate yourself. There's different organizations that have articles and stuff like that. DAMS, Defense Against Mercury Syndrome. I think they have a lot of powerful information on their website. So you really have to educate yourself and don't go in there unprepared, seriously, because you can get snowed very easily. That's my best advice: is you do your homework, get a good list of questions. Don't be a milquetoast. Stand your ground in a nice way, politically correct, and ask for references. That's all. I have the Quest 9 biofrequency device, if that's what you mean, Sandra. Yeah, I have no idea that BioQuest. Any advice on systemic candida? Been to a whole lot of doctors and can't seem to find an answer. You got to change your terrain. Are you too acidic? Or you're below oral pH of 6.5. See, some people advocate urine pH first thing in the morning and oral pH. Well, oral pH is way more accurate in assessing the pH within the cell. When you take the urine pH, it's telling you the pH outside the cell. So in comparison, oral pH is way more important. So that's very, very important. Also, if you have a heavy metal burden, you got to get rid of the heavy metals or you're not going to get rid of the candida. So that's another factor. Your intestines, you got to, again, following my sequence, liver, detox, open up the avenues of excretion, go after the heavy metals, then the chemicals like glyphosate, insecticides, pesticides, then infections, and then vaccines. Candida is an opportunistic organism. It's always present in the body. If you got a low thyroid, you're not going to control candida. I just had a patient in, he's had candida problems for probably 35 years. And when I examined him today, he had a weak thymus gland. Well, your thymus is very crucial in your immune system. So again, if you don't address the thymus and you don't address the thyroid and the intestines, and you're just trying to kill a candida, it's not going to work. More than likely, that's what these doctors have been doing, is throwing darts at the candida without preparing the terrain, the heavy metals, the additives, the pH, the electrical potential in your body. Do you have distressors in the body like malocclusion, for example, or root canal teeth or third molar extraction sites that may have infections in the jawbone, cranial distortions that are, causing your adrenals to overwork and wear down your immune system. So you really have to take a global look instead of just say, oh, I have a great product, Candida X. This guy over in New Zealand has supposedly a great product line. Patient that I had today say, I've been taking this product for 6 months and I'm not getting anywhere. Again, he didn't evaluate the patient. He didn't find a low thymus gland. And if you don't get these components of your immune system under control, you'll never get rid of the candida. And especially heavy metal problems today, glyphosate problems today are ubiquitous. Okay. How do you clear ringworm? Again, it's fungal infections. And the key is your terrain, your heavy metals, your thyroid, your thymus, your intestines, the liver. You got to approach it globally, get the foundation cleaned up, and then you can use right frequencies for that. But again, if you don't get the pH corrected, you don't get a healthy microbiome in your intestines, you're not eating healthy, you're eating refined carbohydrates and sugar products. It's not going to happen. A little off the topic, is the WHO pandemic treaty a threat? You better believe it. First of all, Lindsay, you have to understand that in the United States, no foreign treaty can override the Constitution of the United States. So all this talk about the WHO taking over, legally they cannot. Absolutely cannot. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and no foreign treaty can supersede it. So, there's a lot of disinformation, and the propaganda machines, the mainstream media, they keep pushing this garbage to condition the people to accept it. So that's the key. You have to understand the Constitution, and like they keep saying about taking away the Second Amendment. It's a God-given right, and you cannot remove it. So that's why we're the only country in the world that has this type of constitution. And the fact that we are allowed to own guns is what's preventing the idiots, the deep state, from taking over our country. You see what they did in Australia and New Zealand and the UK. They just suppressed these people like ants, and now they're just starting to fight back. But in the United States, see, in Canada, when they had that trucker thing and then they closed their bank accounts, see, that kind of crap's not going to happen, I think, in the United States, because the people are going to stand up for their rights. But yeah, the WHO, they're pushing this agenda to take over the whole world. That's why they're trying to crash the U.S. If the U.S. goes down the toilet, so goes the rest of the world. So that's why it's critical that we push back every which way we can to prevent the takeover. That's why it's so crucial that the 2020 election be overturned, because if they don't resolve this and they get away with cheating in the 2022 election, it's all over. And anyway, so what are the common splinters for a client that has high blood pressure? Well, number one, you can have underactive thyroid. Number two, you can have bowel toxicity causing high blood pressure. 3, you can have atherosclerosis, which is plaque buildup in the blood vessels. You can be sympathetic dominant, which will cause vasoconstriction. You could be estrogen dominant, which causes vasoconstriction, high blood pressure. What else? You can have some problems in the kidney with renin levels that can cause high blood pressure. So there's a few splinters that you have to address. And just trying to take a diuretic, and flush out the potassium and the B1 in your body, the thiamine, it's ridiculous. It's like painting on rust. You're not getting at the core issue. You can have organs that are congested, for example, and the blood can't flow through properly. That's going to elevate your blood pressure. So, next question, great thing. I am 95.5 basal temperature, and I'm doing iodine drops on my skin, and I know kelp is good. Again, what is in your thyroid preventing it from working? 95.5 is low. And I'm sure you have cold hands, cold feet, insomnia, maybe palpitations of your heart. Just throwing iodine drops and kelp is not solving the problem. What's trapped in your thyroid? Is it glyphosate? Is it heavy metals? Is it a dioxin? Is it PCBs? Is it tetanus vaccine from childhood? Is it antibiotics? Is it, food additives trapped in your thyroid, preventing it from working? Just don't go throwing iodine and kelp and think that that's going to solve your problem. You have to take a global view. Do you have dental issues like third molar extraction sites, periodontal issues, inflammation, which all these toxins are going to drain through the lymphatics down into your thyroid? So I know it's frustrating. It's a broad topic, but you really have to, do your homework. And there's no miracle bullets here. You literally have to define what's causing the thyroid to go haywire. AO scan at all? No, I don't use the AO scan. Sorry. Yeah. The frequencies on your website, are they right frequencies? Let's see. What you mean on the frequency shop? Is that what you're referring to? Actually, the frequencies that I'm using, okay, many of them I've derived directly from nutrients. So with my CyberScan system, I could clone or import the frequency of glutathione or hydroxychloroquine or resveratrol, and I'm getting direct frequency from the actual substance and putting it in my database. I can also put in right frequencies too, and I do have some right frequencies, but the majority of frequencies that I'm using to resolve health issues are coming from the actual nutrient. So right frequencies are effective if you get the right ones. If you don't, you're not going to hurt anything, but you're not going to get resolution either. Are you familiar with Carolyn McMakin, her book, The Resonance Effect? She has been using FSM frequency-specific microcurrents. No, I'm not. Unfortunately, there's a lot of great researchers out there that have great information with frequencies. All I can tell you is that the key to effectively resolving the problem is to define what is in the organ that's causing it to be dysfunctional. Just using, and I've used microcurrents since 1988. They're wonderful, and it's a good shotgun approach. But if you don't remove the splinter that's trapped in the organ, you're missing a key component. So there's, like I said, there's all kinds of music frequencies that can use for healing, and essential oils, which are very good quality to raise your hertz of your body. But again, if you don't remove the splinter, you can't get the true healing. But resonance is very, very important. Quest 9 has been out for a while, and it's in the Skio family. The E-System is older. However, they are now releasing it to the public. I had the device that was above the Skio unit for about 4.5 years. I found it to be had a very steep learning curve and very limited. The database was, in the 4.5 years that I had it, they never upgraded their extent of their database, which I thought was very, very weird that they wouldn't put the research in there. Thoughts on niacin as anti-inflammatory? Okay, niacin is going to flush you. Again, what's causing the inflammation process? Okay. It's like people say, oh, I got a high A1C, I have a high inflammatory marker, and they start taking anti-inflammatories like NSAID drugs. You haven't defined the cause of the problem. Niacin is like a shotgun approach. It'll work, but if you don't remove the splinter, the inflammation is going to come back. It's like cutting the cancer out, and you still have the surrounding tissue that's high in glyphosate and mercury and cadmium and dioxin and PCBs and trapped, vaccines. Cancer is going to come back. Same thing with inflammation. Biggest factor is the adulterated oils in the diet, people. Interestingly, the patient that I had in today who had the candida problem, about 2 months ago, I put him on the organic cold pressed omega-6, omega-3 oils in 11:1 ratio. And I told him, I said, you're not going to burn when you go out in the sun. He said, you're 100% correct. Since I've been taking the oils, I haven't gotten sunburn. And most people are deficient in the parent essential oils, the true parent essential oils, the omega-6s and omega-3s. So again, try to focus in on what's causing the inflammation instead of just shotgunning with niacin or quercetin or bromelain or zymesins. You want to try to define what the heck's causing it. Are your live recordings accessible? Absolutely. If you go to ghsdoc.live, by tomorrow, probably late morning, the recordings, Paul, will be up there, and all the old ones, the library we have, I'm sure we have over 100 interviews and sessions. I mean, we just have 71 just from the Thursday night ones, plus all the ones from the past, TV interviews and so forth. Yeah, it's all free. It's a library. The more educated you become, the more intelligent consumer you'll be, and the faster you'll get resolution to your problem. Interestingly, I just had a guy in from Maryland who's been grinding and clenching his teeth for many, many, many years, and he has a box full of appliances, and he had severe cranial problems, and I adjusted his cranium, and I think, and plus he had parasites. So parasites can cause grinding and clenching. And if you don't address that issue, and a low thyroid, which has to do with muscle and ligament function, and balance the bite and the cranium, you're not going to get rid of the grinding and clenching. So he's been to all these so-called specialists and experts, no results. And I'm very confident that within maybe 2-3 months we'll get rid of his problem. So could I ask you to contribute to my new book? What is it? It's about the many things that block healing. Just send me an email, Paul, ghsdoc@icnr.com, and just give me some guidelines, what you're looking for, approximately how long of a section or whatever. I'll be more than happy to try to help you out. How do you protect yourself from suppression? Well, it's real simple. I am on the board of the World Organization for Natural Medicine. They've tried to take my dental license away from me several times. But this is the best protection, legal protection that I've found. When you have an independent license to practice natural medicine, the traditional state boards do not have jurisdiction over your license. Therefore, they can't prosecute you. It's too simple. Certain steps have to be taken, such as separate bank account, separate telephone number, separate website, separate files, separate consent forms. See, everything has to be segregated, and a separate terminal for your MasterCard and Visa. So this way they can't say, oh, you're working under your naturopathic license, you're working outside the scope of your practice. Well, sorry, I have an independent license to practice natural medicine, which you do not have jurisdiction over. I can do all the services under that license, and you can tell me that I can't do it. And that's how you beat them. It's real simple. It only took me about 8 years to figure it out. Sheila McKenzie is the head of the World Organization for Natural Medicine up in Toronto. WONM, World Organization for Natural Medicine. You can look them up online. Let me give you Sheila's telephone number. Let's see, hold on. Okay, well, 647-517-4436. That's her mobile number. And you can get your, whatchamacallit, you take your credentials from whatever degree you have, whatever field, and you submit them. And then you become a member of the World Organization of Natural Medicine. And you'll have the protection. That's how you do it. You know, if you're a chiropractor, they can get you for practicing outside your scope of practice. If you're a medical doctor and you're treating with nutrition, you're going to get nailed for practicing below the standard of care. They'll hang you. So, a word to the wise, I'm telling you, medical doctors have taken their license away for these type of things because they thought that they can, go head to head with these mental midgets in their kangaroo court and show them all the evidence. They have an agenda, Paul. They don't give a crap about all the scientific documentation, peer-reviewed journals. So that's not going to cut them. You got to beat them at their own game. And that's the jurisdiction game. Once you establish that they have no jurisdiction, you've won. And that's pretty easy to do. Just keep everything segregated. So hopefully I've answered your question. Any other questions? Thanks for watching. I'm glad you took time out of your busy schedule. There's a lot of great information. I believe energy medicine is the wave of the future. Once you get an understanding and how to use it properly, it's very, very powerful. Reiki, all these energy techniques, acupuncture, color therapy, music therapy, nutritional therapy, it's all frequencies. So God bless. See you next week, and stay well.